We have some new details on the backstage altercation between Andrade and Sammy Guevara last night at AEW Dynamite that saw Andrade get sent home whilst Guevara competed in the main event. Plus, Tony Khan reveals he spoke to Nick Khan after that infamous promo he cut on him last year amid the WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling rumours. Plus, matches are confirmed for next week's Dynamite in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And the biggest story at the moment, of course, is this backstage altercation between Andrade and Sammy Guevara last night at AEW Dynamite that saw Andrade get sent home. His match with Preston Vance that was scheduled for this coming Friday on Rampage, a career versus mask match, that was cancelled. Guevara still competed in the main event, but there was this backstage altercation that involved shoving, punches being thrown, and it's just the latest backstage altercation to occur in All Elite Wrestling in the last couple of months. Sammy Guevara was involved in another one with Eddie Kingston a few months ago, plus of course that now infamous backstage brawl after All Out involving CM Punk, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega and Ace Steel, and we have new details surrounding this, some of what may have happened. I'm not going to say what did happen because, as you know, there's lots of different sides to this one and the truth lays somewhere in between the middle of all of them. Now, it was reported, of course, that Sammy Guevara and Andrade had a backstage altercation at AEW Dynamite last night. And according to Dave Meltzer on the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, we have a lot of details here. The Jericho Appreciation Society member did not throw any punches during that, which is why he did not get sent home. Now, was sent home from the arena, which is why his planned match against Preston Vance ended up being pulled from AEW Rampage on Friday night. The former WWE superstar, according to Meltzer, was apparently waiting in the hallway for his confrontation, and while there are conflicting reports as to what went down in that moment, it is believed he managed to get a couple of punches in before they were broken up. Now, issues between the two AEW stars have been building earlier this week after El Idolo claimed Guevara is the only person he's ever had an incident with when Guevara complained about how hard he hits him during a match. The two then got involved in an online Twitter argument where the former NXT champion made it clear he didn't care about being fired and he would be seeing Guevara at Dynamite on Wednesday. Now, even though they did get into an altercation, AEW did try to get on top of the issue beforehand, as both men reportedly were spoken to on Tuesday night and they were told not to fight. We're actually going to reveal this whole transcript of what Meltzer said here because I think it's important to understand what he said here. It was made clear to both them involved that any fighting would lead them to both being sent home. And while both men agreed that nothing would happen, that obviously was not the case. AEW did have security in place as well, clearly being prepared for any potential escalation. So these again are according to new reports or details that Meltzer has given. I've got the transcript of what Meltzer said in front of me, so we'll read this out here because again I think it's important that these details don't get lost in context. So this is what Meltzer had to say, quote, Tuesday night they were talked to, both of them, and they were told no fighting, and Andrade was told that if this is your idea, you're not going to get fired if you fight, but you will be sent home. And Andrade said, don't worry, nothing's going to happen. There's going to be no fighting. This was Tuesday night. Sammy was the same thing. Nothing's going to happen. They had security there. Everybody was warned ahead of time. Now, Brian Alvarez then says, quote, the story that was not on TMZ that I heard from multiple people was that, in fact, Sammy did not throw any punches. One person did say that Andrade spun him around and Sammy shoved him, and then Andrade punched him. The other stories were that Andrade just punched him and Sammy did not fight back. Meltzer then says, quote, this is what I heard from someone I totally trust on this one, that Andrade was waiting, everybody was waiting, Andrade was waiting in the hallway, he got 2 punches in before it was broken up, and Sammy didn't fight back. Meltzer then said, quote, Andrade's trying to get fired. We all know that. When guys want to leave, some will go to great extremes to do that. It's happened with WWE. I've talked to people in WWE who have tried to get fired with some of the craziest things in the world, and I've told them it's not going to work. There were some crazy stories of people trying to get fired. Getting in a fight was never one of them, but there's things much crazier than that from people who wanted to leave and get out and were not going to be allowed to do that because the company wasn't going to release them. So essentially, what Meltzer and Brian Alvarez are saying here is quite a few interesting details. Now, obviously, this morning, when I heard the details of this, I was, like any fan, furious. I was furious because this is not the first time this has happened, not just in AEW's history, but recent AEW history. In the last month, 6 weeks, we have seen multiple altercations backstage. And one of the biggest things I was really annoyed and furious about this morning was that where is Tony Khan? Where is talent relations involved in all of this? Now, I think it is positive, and I will hold my hands up and say I was wrong here and give credit to the AEW talent relations department and to Tony Khan for saying that, if Meltzer is correct, and again, believe what you will when it comes to Dave Meltzer, and when it comes to fights, when it comes to altercations, when it comes to backstage arguments, there are always two sides to each story, and several other sides, actually, because there are eyewitnesses and people that hear things or secondhand rumors, etc. But when it does come from Meltzer, it means that he spoke to someone, maybe even Sammy Guevara himself, but people very close to this situation, people that were there. If Meltzer is saying that Tuesday they were both talked to and they're both told, do not fight, do not approach each other. If you fight, you will be sent home. If you have an altercation, you will be sent home. Andrade, if you think that fighting is going to get you released or fighting is going to get you fired, it's not going to get you fired. You'll just be sent home. And they both agreed to that. Then you could argue AEW did what they could do there. They did what they were supposed to do there. Now, when it came to security being hired and extra security being in the arena, that is frankly ridiculous. Because if you have a chat with these two people and you still feel you have to hire security because you don't believe that those two can be professional, that's a problem. That is an issue. And what it should have been said and what it should have been done was, I'm speaking to both of you on Tuesday night, which they did. I'm speaking to you, Andrade. I'm speaking to you, Sammy. They should have then tried to get them both on the phone. It's 2022. It's very possible to do that. Conference call, Zoom call, whatever you have to do. Or, failing that, say, and Wednesday, we're going to get you in a room and we're going to hash this out because this isn't acceptable. And also, and we don't know these details, but I would hope this would be the case, they should have been said, oh, and by the way, we're going to fine you for what you did on social media. Because at a time where the perception of AEW is that the inmates are running the asylum, you've given everyone just way more ammunition on that. And we're already struggling when it comes to PR, and we're already struggling. We've already got a black eye when it comes to what happened at All Out. And then you go to do that on social media, which wasn't professional. It's not professional for Andrade to do it in the initial interview. It's not professional for Sammy Guevara to also respond on social media and do the same thing. It wasn't professional from everyone involved. So I would have hoped initially that they were fined anyway, let alone, now with what's happened. Now, it would imply here that Andrade was somewhat the aggressor, and Andrade essentially ignored the instructions he was given, i.e. no fighting, i.e. do not confront each other backstage, stay away from each other. And if what Dave Meltzer is saying is accurate, in that Andrade was essentially just waiting in the hallway and he got two punches in before it was broken up and Sammy didn't fight back, I think I still would have sent Sammy Guevara home, even though he wasn't involved in that, because the precedent has been set, right? The precedent has been set in what happened at All Out. At All Out, you had people that were trying to resolve the situation, that people that were trying to break up the situation, were trying to break up the brawl. And everyone in that room, everyone that was involved, whether they were aggressive or not, whether they were physical or not, they got sent home. They were suspended. Sammy Guevara should have been sent home. To send a blanket message once again to the entire locker room that even if you're involved in something like this, there is a no tolerance for it. The fact that Sammy Guevara still wrestled on television that night is unacceptable, in my opinion. And ultimately, as I mentioned, whilst I do believe they took seemingly decent measures to try and prevent this from happening, speaking to both people beforehand, they could have done more. They could have done more, and you could argue that, maybe they looked upon these two talents with too much, I don't know, they gave them too much credit. They gave them too much of a benefit of the doubt that they could behave themselves or they could be professional at television, and they could not, particularly Andrade if he was the aggressor, if indeed this is accurate. But nevertheless, he should have sent a blanket message by sending everyone home. There's been far bigger and, more important changes to AEW recently, i.e. stripping people of world championships, stripping people of trios championships, suspending some of the top people in the company that are still suspended right now. If Sammy Guevara was sent home, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. Jake Hager was there. He could have tagged with Jericho last night. It wouldn't have been a big deal. And as I mentioned, it's not the first time when it comes to Sammy Guevara. He's had a similar incident with Eddie Kingston. So you could argue that it would actually be, it's a combination of several events why you could send him. You could have found several reasons to send him home. Now, when it comes to Andrade's part of this situation, where Andrade's clearly trying to get himself fired, now it's upon Tony Khan, I believe, to suspend Andrade and say if this is accurate and you were told, if this is accurate, if he was told, by the way, if this is some grand scheme to get fired or get released, you're not going to get fired. You're under contract. It is what it is. Deal with it. And he still tried to get fired, then I could understand to a point Tony Khan digging his heels in and saying, okay, you're suspended, you can sit home, but I'm not going to let you go. I'm not going to give in to what you want, because Tony Khan now has put himself in a difficult position whereby if he fires Andrade, he set a precedent of that's what you have to do. If you're unhappy, just act out and you can leave. That's how you get your release. Now, granted, there have been other examples in the past of misconduct that has led to other people getting fired, and I'm sure maybe that's what Andrade's thinking, right? How do I get fired? Well, the only thing that's been put out there, it's going to be handled on a case-by-case basis, and if there's gross misconduct, they'll fire me. Well, gross misconduct could be, I'll just have a fight. I'll just start beating up Sammy Guevara backstage. He pissed me off anyway. I'm going to pick a fight, and I'll get fired, and that's what I'll do. It could be upon Tony Khan now to actually say, okay, if you do want to leave the company, if you do want to get fired, if you don't want to be here anymore, that's fine. But I'm not just going to let you leave and go back to WWE. I do think there's money in you. I do think there's value in you. And you do have, I don't know how long he has left on his contract. Maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 4 years, maybe it's 5 years. We don't know. But then it would be upon Tony Khan to say, okay, you want to leave? Okay, let's work something out then. Case by case basis. Let's figure it out. I'm not letting you go back to WWE, because I'm not going to help out the competition. I'll give you a conditional release. You can work in Mexico, fine. You can maybe work with Japan, fine. But you're not going to WWE. And you're not, you can go to Impact if that's what you want to do, but you can't go to WWE. And then it would be interesting to figure out what would Andrade try and do. So this is just a mess. And as I go back to previously, and I said this morning, whilst new details have come to light here, and maybe Guevara didn't throw any punches back, he still got physical. Even if he shoved him, they're saying he didn't fight back whatsoever, okay, but he was still involved in that, and everyone should have just been sent home as a blanket message, in my opinion. I don't think it was the right move to put Guevara on television last night. Clearly, as I mentioned, Andrade, the aggressor, is massively in the wrong here, especially as well, if he's given his word he was not going to fight. He's given his word he was not going to get involved with Sammy Guevara on Wednesday, most likely when he said that knowing, no, I'm going to do it anyway. He lied to the office. And that, again, is a suspendable offence, is a finable offence. And I would hope that he has been both. So, in conclusion, though, to bring it back, where does this lie? Where does the fault in all of this lie? It lays with Tony Khan still. It lays with talent relations still. Whilst they did speak to him on Tuesday, there's still more that could have been done here. And this, once again, escalated into something that it didn't need to. And the precedent's already been set that this is somewhat tolerated backstage, and they should have both been taken into a room, I believe. When they were spoken to respectively on Tuesday, they should have then been spoken to together on the call and hashed it out. They should have been taken to a room on Wednesday. When they got to the building, hash this out immediately. If you can't, you're gone. If you can't, you're leaving the building right now. We're not going to let this simmer, because that tension would have been there backstage. Can you imagine? If they'd have got to the building and all of these people, and they've got their own respective factions, right? And people that they like and hang around with, and people in between, they'd been going, oh, did you see what happened with Sammy and Andrade on Tuesday on social media? And if they just gone, yeah, we spoke to him yesterday, that's fine. They're going, yeah, but have they seen each other since then? Because it's one thing to say to someone, it's one thing to say to talent relations, yeah, I'm not going to do anything. And Sammy to say to talent relations, I'm not going to do anything. But then when you see each other, or where one of them's waiting in the hallway for you, it's a little bit different. If you make sure you have someone waiting at the arena once they arrive, you come with me in a room, figure it out right now. If you can't, I'm telling you to go home immediately. That should have been what it had to be. That's talent relations. That's how you handle talent. That's how you handle people. And they did not. So speaking to him Tuesday is great. I'll give him credit for that preventative measure, but it wasn't enough, clearly, because the incident still happened. With Andrade, what does his future look like? I don't know. And Andrade, his behavior's not good enough either, clearly. He's doing what he can to get fired. I mean, he didn't do, a similar thing in WWE, but, he complained publicly in WWE to get his release. Eventually he did. And now he's desperate to go back. To the point whereby you would say, well, if you are WWE, are you looking upon this incident thinking, oh, it'd be great to have Andrade back? It's just got ugly at this point. It's got really, really ugly at this point. So I don't really know what to say anymore. The fact that, this is another ridiculous, detail in this crazy story already is frankly nuts. And it's in keeping with AEW at the moment. And I know there have been those reports about a dressing room that is solid, that is stable, that is unified, that is happy and much happier and has a better morale coming out of All Out than they did previously, but it's still not good enough. And there are still clearly massive issues in AEW. Ticket sales aren't great at the moment. And you've got all of this backstage mess going on too. And it's not good enough, ultimately. Now, speaking of Tony Khan, he revealed an interesting detail about speaking to WWE co-CEO Nick Khan. Tony Khan says he talked to Nick Khan about a memorable promo where he took a shot at the then WWE president. Now, on May 28, 2021, Tony Khan discussed WWE's reported talks with New Japan Pro Wrestling in a promo that took the wrestling world by storm. AEW posted it on their social media channels, and the message concluded with Khan saying, quote, "I think there is room for only one Khan in the wrestling business. It's me, Tony Khan, not some con man from Connecticut." Now, speaking with Ariel Helwani, Khan was asked about the promo, and he began by explaining the context and his mindset surrounding the situation to cut the promo. Khan noted he saw the reports about New Japan working with WWE, and he wanted to showcase the relationship AEW was starting to build with the company. He then continued by describing how he wanted to get some buzz for that week's episode of AEW Dynamite, while also sending a message about AEW's working relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he went on to state that he told Nick Khan about his rationale for the promo since then. He said, quote, "The promo was saying like, hey, every wrestling site basically today reported that WWE is going to work with New Japan. Yet here I am with the US champion on the show tonight. I've got Yuji Nagata coming to Dynamite. I just reunited Roppongi Vice. We're the ones working with New Japan. So I think all the wrestling sites need to call their jets because this isn't true. And maybe watch Dynamite tonight. It was a promo for my own show, but it was also saying, hey, if you read online that New Japan's not working with AEW, that they're going to work with WWE, that's not true because AEW and New Japan have a very strong relationship. Here's why." Then I explained it. I had heard Nick called them, and that's why I did it. I've also told him this since. Helwani then asked Khan whether he talked to Nick Khan, and he noted that they have spoken, but not in person. Quote, "Yeah, so you have talked to him, yeah, not in person. Was it a positive conversation? I don't want to get into it, if I may. I haven't met him, but I have talked to him. I did tell him that was what it was." So essentially he's saying, I have spoken to Nick Khan, not in person, and I spoke to him after the promo. The problem is, the reason why it took the wrestling world by storm is because it's not usually done, and also... And this is the thing with Tony Khan. He's the president of the company, and he's hearing about the news on the websites and responding to them. You could argue, why are you buying into that? Why wouldn't you just pick up the phone to New Japan? I don't know, but it worked. People are still talking about it over a year later, I suppose. Finally, some matches have been announced for Dynamite next week. 3 matches have been announced for next week's Dynamite debut show in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This is a show, as I mentioned, that is actually performing quite well in terms of ticket sales. The Ring of Honor World Championship is on the line. Chris Jericho will be defending the ROH World Championship in his home country against former Ring of Honor World Champion Bryan Danielson. We've got Jungle Boy facing off against Luchasaurus. That was announced last night. Of course, the former tag team champions facing off. Christian Cage will be in the corner of Luchasaurus. And coming out of the National Scissoring Day segment, Swerve Strickland will be facing Billy Gunn. And it must be said, I thought the National Scissoring Day segment was excellent. Way better than I thought it ever was going to be. And it was fun. It was fun. They are so over. It's outrageous how over the Acclaimed are. And even Billy Gunn. I was thinking that when I was watching. I was like, Billy Gunn he has a way of just continuing to stay somewhat relevant somehow, some way. It's crazy. In a week that obviously DX are going to be celebrating their 25th anniversary, I'm glad he's getting his own spotlight because let's face it, if he wasn't with AEW, he'd be involved in that segment. And I'm sure part of him would have liked to be involved in that. Maybe he is. Maybe he will be. You never know. I doubt it at this stage. He's not been advertised or anything. But to have a match, in AEW's first show in Canada, I suppose is not as good, but certainly a spotlight on him. And look, he still looks great, and he can still go. And I'm sure him versus Swerve Strickland will be a good match, a very good match. And the annoying thing is, I suppose, is Dynamite was okay last night, wasn't great. It was the 3-year anniversary show, and it was overshadowed by stuff that didn't happen in the ring once again. And that's the issue of AEW at the moment, is everyone's talking about stuff that isn't happening on the shows. They're talking about stuff that's happening off of it. And that's where AEW is at the moment. But there you go. There's your AEW news stories. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on the AEW news stories in the comment section below. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Peace. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.